Dan, it was interesting. On Election Day, it seems that Uber, at least in the U.S., took a sigh of relief, as it looked like they weren't going to have to treat their workers like workers, but gig workers instead. But then this London thing comes along. What do you make of that?
Yeah, this was a little bit of a gut punch, especially after getting through Prop 22 in California. And I think it just shows that the issues from a regulatory perspective, the worker versus contractor issue, that's not going away. And I think this UK ruling, we could see it potentially cascade, throughout Europe, especially given Uber's exposure. We think it's roughly about 3% of overall revenues in terms of the UK. I think it's a contained risk at this point, but I think it just shows that it's not necessarily time to celebrate just yet, as they're going to continue to contend with these issues over the coming months.
What is then the risk that it goes from being a contained issue to a European issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a risk. And obviously other European countries, especially France, looking at this front and center. I think Uber, is sort of one step ahead of this. I think it is something where they're going to have to work with drivers on this issue, and they might have to scale down some operations, if it does not work economically. And that's why the whole thing's a slippery slope, not just for Uber, but for the gig economy, continues to be a head-scratcher for many. And I think the UK ruling, a bit of a surprise for investors, but I think they took it with a grain of salt, given after going through the Prop 22 nightmare in California.
Why is that stock reaction so relatively muted? Are we appropriately pricing in the risk that this becomes a bigger deal?
Well, I think the biggest deal is what we saw in California, and obviously they got through that in November. And I think investors now are just getting more and more used to that. This is going to be an issue that Uber and the gig economy are going to have to contend with. I think it does view contained to Europe. And from a cost perspective, I think right now that's something that is something that's manageable. But just like you said, if this goes across Europe, then it goes from containable to something that's more worrisome. And I think that's something that is going to continue to be a bit of an overhang around Uber and the gig economy as they get through this. But no doubt, a little bit of a gut punch in terms of what we saw from the UK.
Dan, right before your segment, we were getting an update on some of the LiDAR stocks from our own Ed Ludlow. I'm rapidly brushing up on, sort of what that means really for EVs and autonomous driving. Where are you thinking about Apple and this continued push into having a car?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Apple is essentially going through an electric vehicle dating game. As they continue to talk to vendors and suppliers, we think it's a matter of when, not if, that they dive into the deep end of the pool on electric vehicles. We view Volkswagen, VW, especially given their QuantumScape relationship, as one of the top candidates, along with Hyundai and Ford, potentially NIO. And we're talking about a $5 trillion market over the next decade. Cupertino is not going to look at this from the outside looking in. I believe we see an Apple car by 2024 with a partnership likely inked and formalized by the fall of this year.
Okay, inking a deal, I want to make sure I'm understanding you right. Inking a deal by the fall of this year, but you're looking at a car around the 2024 timeline?
Yeah, it'll be about 2 years plus to actually get a car out there, but it's all about picking the right partner.
But Dan,
one that checks all the boxes.
But, I was talking to Adam Jonas over at Morgan Stanley a few weeks ago, and he continued to say, similar to you, Apple Car is tech's best kept secret. We all know it's coming. But he seemed to think that it wouldn't look like a car that we currently drive. It might not be in the driveway. Does Apple just build a car, or is this going to look and feel like something we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, I think that concept might be something we see later this decade. But at least initially, this is going to be something that's going to be within the electric vehicle swim lane. I mean, Apple right now is going after that in autonomous. And even if they could get 3 to 5% share, we're talking about something that could add $30 plus to the stock. So, of course, there's going to be out-of-box thinking given Cupertino. But I think some of those sci-fi projects maybe happen later this decade, not coming out of the gate in 2024. That's our view.
Is it then a threat to Tesla or not?
So we don't view it as a threat to Tesla just because it's a big enough ocean for more than one boat. Even though right now in the EV market. It's Tesla's world. Everyone else is paying rent. We view that Apple and GM and Ford and others, this is going to be a massive opportunity. We're talking about $5 trillion over the next decade. So I think it's something that's not necessarily competitive to Tesla out of the gates, but I think it just shows we are going into a golden age of EVs, and Apple is not going to miss out on that party.
Dan, I have one final cue for you before we let you go, because it is a Friday, so we won't keep you here for the next hour. I'm going to be interviewing the QuantumScape CEO at the bottom of the hour. What would be the one question you want to ask?
I mean, a massive battery technology breakthrough this week. I think it's really better understanding the hurdles to get to mass volume over the next few years. They could change the game of battery technology in terms of everything going on at QuantumScape. What they did this week was jaw-dropping in terms of the breakthrough.
The battery, Dan, is this the lithium ion that I think we associate with Tesla into this sort of solid metal lithium? Is that the game changer?
Well, solid state, everything QuantumScape's going after, that's the holy grail for EV battery technology. And they've made strides that I think many thought never could be made. If they could scale this, it changes the games of battery technology. But it just shows right now we're in an EV battery arms race going on, just given what we're seeing in technology for EVs over the next decade.